Mabuhay, everyone. This is Reverend Reg, and I'm here again for the second episode of Putting Things in Perspective. I mean, perspective because we encourage all our viewers to put things in perspective because your perspective shapes your reality. And, this evening in Manila, I'm super excited because holidays are fast approaching, and normally people tend to become more reflective towards the end of the Gregorian calendar because people are asking if they use their time wisely and if they have actually achieved their goals or how far they are from demonstrating the fondest desires of their hearts. And normally, it's just one of those times of the year, especially Thanksgiving is fast approaching in the United States. So, this next 2 months of the year of this Gregorian calendar is something that a lot of my viewers actually look forward to in terms of self assessment and making sure that they're ending the year strong, meaningful, and very fulfilled. So today I'd like to introduce everyone to my guest, who's also a colleague of mine in the International Metaphysical Ministry. So just to give you all a brief background, our guest for today is Sam Rafoss, the founder and CEO of Love Brand You. She's also the host of Love Brand You on Win Win, Women TV, a proud mama of three lovely daughters, devoted nana to one amazing grandson, dedicated practitioner of meditation, yoga, and holistic health, recoping wine addict and activist, metaphysical life and health coach. Her goal is to help women transform from the inside out to guide and reimagine their lives with extensive experience in life coaching, consulting, and mentoring, and a vast history of client success. Her individualized metaphysical approach will help you attain your goals. All right. So, good morning, Sam. How are you doing?
Hi, Reg. I'm great. Thank you.
That's fantastic to hear. And finally, we have this opportunity to chat because we've had this long planned since June, I think, of
Yeah.
2021.
I think you
So,
planted the seed and then we thought it was going to grow and it took till now, but perfect timing.
yeah, and finally, I'm so happy because so many things happened, and you also have a lot of blessings during that period of not being able to execute our initial intention. So, wow, Sam, I'm so happy to finally have this interview with you, especially one of the things that you told me recently is that you got a break on TV in Canada. So please tell me about it. How did you actually end up being on TV?
Well, it is an online platform right now. So it is called Win Win Women TV, and the the brain behind it, the vision behind it, is Dr. Paula Fellingham, and I was introduced to her about this time last year, and just started becoming active within Win Win Women Network and became a thought leader. And probably earlier this year, she just said to some of our thought leaders, she said, I'm working on this other project called Win Women TV. Would you like to join me on it? So it's been in her thought process and manifesting, probably, I would think, about 10 years. And really the last 2 or 3 years is when they've been working on it more, her and her team. So they are creating a actually standalone platform. So it's a multimedia, social, and TV platform. So right now, as I was telling you before we got on live, that last week was the launch. So my first episode for Love Brand You, I'm live every Thursday, like this. So basically, you would just see me the same way, live on Thursdays at 6 p.m. because I'm Mountain Time. I'm in Calgary, Canada, so I'm Mountain Time. So Thursdays at 6 p.m. I go live with Love Brand You for an hour. And there is, I think at this point in time, let's see, 24 of us. So right now on Wednesday and Thursday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. PST, so Pacific Standard Time. There are 12 shows each day, and each day we're adding more shows because we have more and more women that are joining the platform. So right now it's like this: it's on Zoom on the platform. So when you click on, say you went to Love Brand You and said watch the show, it would take you through to where you'd find me or any of the other women. And then in January, when we do our big mega launch, then then it may be where we're on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire. And don't hold me to that. You know that they are coming onto those networks, like we are. That is the goal, and the goal is to actually have our own network working by then too. There's, as you can imagine, there's so much going on in the background. However, right now it's just really fun because we've been working up to this launch all year, and to actually, see it come to fruition, that was really exciting last week.
Amazing. And I'm so happy for you. And I trust that it will be even bigger and you will achieve your goals on TV quickly and peacefully. Especially, I really think that right now people need more, uh, need to understand metaphysics a lot better and how it can actually help them make their lives a lot easier to manage and navigate after this amazing transition phase for all of us globally.
Yeah. And that was my plan, Reg, that I honestly, like, Love Brand You, and anyone that wants can look at the history or the journey. I call it the journey of Love Brand You because it actually started out as a podcast. So I had it as a podcast in 2018, 2017, 2018. And then I had alluded to, going through some transition myself. So I had paused the podcast. It was this time in 2018 that I paused the podcast, and it had always been near and dear to my heart. So as I was thinking of what to do for my show, the original intent was to do something health related. The original intent was to do something because I help people with their health, and because I have recently, in the last year and a half, become what I call sober. And even though it wasn't necessarily a big part of what I needed to do, I was just called to do that. So originally, I thought that the show would be on one of those two themes. However, you and I both know that as metaphysical practitioners, that our daily rituals of prayer and meditation, I kept going back to, okay, God, what's this show going to be? And it literally was, you really want to bring back Love Brand You. And I thought, what, like, it just made sense. And then the more that I did meditate and pray on it, it really was coming through loud and clear that metaphysics has been a love of mine my whole life. And explaining, how, we're trying to explain in layman's terms, or how to get some of the people around us understanding the beauty and the magnificence of living a metaphysical way of life without sounding like we're preaching at anyone. So I thought, what better way than to take the show in that direction and make metaphysics more available for at least everyone that follows me. So I love it.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And maybe I have a lot to learn from you because honestly, for me, when I'm very passionate about a particular topic, I can't really help it. It becomes a way of life for me.
Yeah,
So, one of the things that I learned from Guy Kawasaki and Steve Jobs, especially when they were promoting Apple, was that you have to become a chief evangelist of whatever idea it is that you're actually trying to spread to the rest of the community. And I'm not really sure how that's working for me because one of the things that I dealt with my yoga practice was to live in my authentic space, in my
Mhm.
authentic self. And naturally for me, it's just so second nature for me to talk about metaphysics because it was the thing that liberated me most from my insecurities. And especially one of the practical ways that I explain metaphysics to people is that, this image and likeness of God thing that every religion talks about, it's actually something that's not only philosophical, but is also very practical. That's why I like what you mentioned earlier, God, where are we going to take the show?
Yeah.
Something to that effect. Because for me, it's one of the most practical things that I bring down the idea of metaphysics to people, and I'm not really sure how I how I come off to people. Especially for me, I don't really mind the idea of am I doing it right? Am I not doing it correctly? Because I've always been self-employed, and part of being self-employed is you have to learn how to promote yourself and what you do. So I'm not really into the, this is how it's supposed to be or that's not how it's supposed to be. Because when you're self-employed, you just get on and on and on about your business, and you're not really particular about how are they going to react if I say this. So please educate me. Maybe I'm also not being effective in that manner.
I I think you're doing like I'm nodding because you're doing exactly what I do. I mean, I've been self-employed for 20 years. And within that time, I have done a couple of contracts where you would say there that I was more employed. However, I think as entrepreneurs, and I say this to my clients and I say this to my coaching groups and different groups I'm in, that we tend to, in a good way, we tend to become unemployable because I think we're just so used to doing our own path and of course, it's nice if people totally understand or people love you or people like you. Or what I have really realized probably the last 10 years, though, of going somewhat a different path. And even before when I was doing more business coaching, I did not hide, and hide isn't the right thing, but I did temper the spiritual side. I did temper some of the metaphysical concepts and bring out more business because I'm helping people with business. However, what I found is when that's part of you, it just comes out. So every time that I would make a reference to spirit, or I would make a reference to source, or I'm forever saying to everybody, check inside. Check inside. What does your intuition, what does your God self, higher self? And I try to use different terms because you don't know which term um, connects with people. And each time that I would say something like that, I would see women, because I primarily work with women. I have a male client every now and then, but 95% of my clients are women. And I would see women perk up and go, "What did you just say?" And I would say, "Oh, well, connecting with spirit." And they would go, "Oh, I didn't know you were so spiritual," or "I didn't, that's why I was drawn to work with you. That's why I was drawn." So I think the more that we are just our authentic self, like you're saying, I'm just going to be who I am. We owe that to ourselves, but we also owe that to those that we can best connect with, because we are not going to connect with everyone. So just,
Exactly.
just be who you are.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. Especially, I work with a lot of small, medium enterprise entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we talk about, when you're trying to build something of your own, you don't really have time for like always checking in if you're doing it right or not. Because the thing about us, you just want to make sure that the operations are done as smoothly and in the best way possible. And at the same time, you're not always second guessing because you're not there to waste your time.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
want to make sure that you can accomplish as much of your goals. And like for me, for example, it's about 2 months before 2021 ends, and this time of the year I'm really checking in with my soul if have I accomplished my most important goals this year. And although I didn't reach my targets in the harvest convention as I would like to, but there's also this cushion because there were other things that turned out to be more meaningful and beautiful than I initially envisioned. And one of the things that I would like to ask you, Sam, because one of your strengths as a life coach is to help people turn their dreams into reality. So, what's your process like? Because a lot of life coaches and spiritual teachers talk about working from within in order for them to demonstrate their most meaningful goals.
Um, I think what I've learned, and this is partly through training, but it's also partly through experience of doing what I do for so many years. Um, First of all, I do have my training through Fowler International Coaching Academy, Professional Coaching Academy, which really spoke to me because prior to that, I did use a process. However, when I was coming back to to my work after this break, and I had alluded to it at the beginning, after I had taken a pause on the podcast, and in 2019 my mom had passed away, and it took me back to just saying, okay, I needed to take some time to grieve. I needed to take some time to step back from my work and really go within to figure out what I wanted to do moving forward. And that's when, even though I had done my business spiritually, metaphysically, I would say my whole life, I that's when I did go back to online school and take our schooling at the University of Metaphysics. So I had spent some time doing that because it was really important to me to get the actual bachelor's degree. That was important. And at the same time, I was really called to take the actual coaching training. So even though I had considered myself a coach because I had been a holistic nutritionist before that, and I have a lot of training, so I did take Fowler life coaching, which their process is dreams, plans, and actions. So I married my process of what I did with people through that uh, body, mind, spirit way with, okay, what are your dreams? What are your plans? And what are the actions that you're going to take to get to the realization of that? So I call it, the transform from the inside out system that I do with my clients. So it's a combination of holistic nutrition, it's a combination of metaphysics, it's a combination of that life coaching model of dreams, plans, and actions. And we I let's say we do our discovery session, and then we move forward creating a plan that works for my clients, because I am big on what I say to people, those of us that are metaphysical, spiritual. I say, I'm big on the woo woo, but also the action. So
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And it's so important, I think, to have that balance of understanding that woo woo part and then the action, because we know that it's really the action that will transform you as well. Of course, aside from the inner psychological state that you need to be in harmony with your action in order for
yeah.
you to get to your goals as closest as possible. And I want to ask you, Sam, when you talk about holistic nutrition, please expand more on it, because here in the Philippines, for example, we have a very different source of food, especially a lot of our friends in University of Metaphysics are also into either vegan or vegetarian diets. Is it something that's part of your advocacy? Do your clients need to be in that diet in order for them to maximize their dreams, their plans, and their actions? Is that something that's part of your coaching?
But My way of working with individuals with holistic nutrition is individualized. I I personally like I actually I was vegan probably for about 6 7 months in 2016. I was the nutrition director for a fitness company, and at the time my oldest daughter, at the time she was 16, and she said to me, Mom, I want to be vegan. I want to, she had gone through some training and had learned about what happens at factory farms and things like that, and she really said, I want to try and be vegan. So me being the holistic nutrition professional, I said, okay, well, I'll do it with you, and we'll do it the right way. So we explored that option, and it was okay. We did it, and we did it in a healthy perspective, and it was good for me to learn about it. However, my way of working with anyone with holistic nutrition is individualized. So it's doing a nutrition assessment. I have other ways I can. I have worked with a company for DNA testing. So Nutrigenomics is a DNA test that we look at your markers as far as your nutrition, whether you might be have that gene that you're lactose intolerant, or you're more sensitive to coffee, or so. No, I guess that's what I'm saying is, no, I don't prescribe to a specific diet. What I do is say to people, what is it you want to do with your health? What is it that you like? If people are searching to be vegan, I've had clients in the past that wanted a vegan diet, and I've supported them in that. With holistic nutrition, you are supporting the body, mind, spirit. So we might do it through nutrition, but it is still a plan that is based on that individual. So I really promote healthy eating, as far as, nature first, holistic, whole body.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And it's very important for me and the rest of the viewers to hear it because, of course, we know we have different food sources and different advantages in every country. And one of the things that I learned from my school in Canada as well, it's called precision nutrition,
Oh,
is that,
right, right on. Yeah, I have
yeah,
colleagues that are from precision. Yeah.
yeah. And one of the things that I learned, it's best to eat whatever is your food source from your space so that you're also able to get the food that is freshest from your from
You're
your
you're reading my mind. As you were
area.
saying that, I was, yeah, like, what's local to you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And something that I want to add, Sam, for example, we both know that as much as possible, we all want to eat healthy.
of
But
course.
another thing that we want to consider is the budget. Because,
Yeah,
if you're just starting out in your career and you're not making as much money, like, for example, Sam, just to give you an idea,
yeah,
if I go to the convenience store, there's a plant-based burger and it will cost about $2. And then there's a meat burger that's about $1.85 here in my space.
yeah.
So for someone who's just starting out, even if you think that there's just a little difference, it can mean a lot in their budget.
Oh,
So
yeah.
things like that we have to consider because one of the things that's a big battle now for some people who are shifting in my community is that where do I put the balance where I want to take care of the planet and I want to take care of myself? I want to be in my optimal energy, but at the same time, I'm also considering that I have to be grateful for whatever is available
Yes.
that I have in the moment. So, where do you strike the balance there, Sam? Because it's something that a lot of freelancers who just moved out of their space,
Yeah.
which are my viewers, are also considering. What can you say about it?
What I tell people when it comes to food and things like that is, number one, if it is your budget, then look for the best, like the healthiest source for your budget. Like, sometimes we think we're doing the right thing because, and I'm not knocking plant-based burgers. Like, Abby and I used to make them. We would make them from scratch, and it does take a lot to do that. Um, However, go for nature first. So some of these packaged products, and I tell people, look at the ingredients. If it's got an ingredient list that has 30 ingredients, or it has ingredients that you cannot pronounce, then what I equate that to is your body doesn't know what to do with it either. So if you read something and people are like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to eat sugar, I'm not supposed to eat fat, I'm not," and I try to make the correlation that when it comes to food, so say you're reading two labels and it says, sugar, fat, um, and any other ingredient that you can recognize. And it has another label that says sodium ascorbate or monosodium glutamate, whatever it is that you either cannot pronounce. Like, your body doesn't know what to do with that and how to process it. At least with sugar and fat, your body recognizes those and says, okay, well, I may not totally like it, but I have the processes to deal with it. So, look at good, better, and best, and equate it that way.
Amazing, Sam. That's such a simple answer, but it's very helpful. Thank you for sharing that.
But go with natural first. Always, always,
Amazing.
like, just have an egg, have a salad,
Yeah.
have something that is closest to nature as you can versus anything packaged. That's always what I'm saying to my clients first.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. It's such a simple thing, but it's very helpful, and I'm sure it's something that people can apply every day. And another thing, Sam, please expand on the power of the mind, because I just want to share with you. For example, I'm sure that every metaphysical practitioner, we all have an assessment of why our particular community is thriving and why our particular community is also not doing as well as it can, especially in terms of bringing out the full potential of the community. For example, in the Philippines, we grew up in a fundamentalist religion where we were taught that God is only outside of us. And if ever there was a discussion that God is within, it was only discussed in passing. We weren't given the tools to really say God is within you, go within, meditate so that you can go back to your God within. And I see that as a very big barrier as to why we're not as successful as we can be collectively in my community, because we think that God is outside of us, and a lot of us they think that there's a myth in my community. When you talk about karma, some people say, but karma is only for a particular group, because they have it in their language and we don't have it in ours. But karma is actually simply the law of sowing and reaping, the law of radiation and attraction, the law of whatever intention you put out there, you're gonna get it back. So for me, that's one of the things that I assess in my community, why we're not living from our full potential. How about you? How would you assess your community? What do you think is something that they can refine so that they can step up their game and live up to their full potential?
And it's true here in North America too, Reg, that it where we come from in religion, or where I came from anyway. I was raised in a Lutheran environment when I was a child, and a lot of it there I have great memories. However, there still was that sense of praying to a God outside of ourselves, and I think that was for me, because I was that intuitive child, or I always say, I heard voices, and I went with that, and I didn't know it till I was much older that it probably was the voice of spirit. And nowadays, what I usually will say to people is, be open, be open to God within. However, when we get really metaphysical about the one consciousness. So we know metaphysically that there is one consciousness, and we're all part of that mind, and one mind. We're part of it. We just need to focus on. I just want to say this, hopefully, so that people can understand what I'm meaning. We know that the collective consciousness, because there are so many people that are in this thought pattern. So say say there's a collective group of people that are thinking these thoughts and have this belief of God outside of us. Then there's another group that is thinking the thought that God is inside of us. So it's really tapping into what your belief is. So it's not that either one are right or wrong. It's just knowing that where your collective is. Does that make sense? From a metaphysical point, we get it. So trying to bring somebody with a belief that is over here to over here within one step, we know that it doesn't work, because people can't fathom that they have come from this belief and this is what has been happening for their whole life, and you want me to believe something else and come over here.
Yeah.
So it's really it's really living your beliefs and having, and we talked about it right at the beginning, is just being who you are, and accepting that there's some people that will think you're okay, and there's some people that, like, there's still some people that think I'm a little bit weird. And if you focus on the people that think you're a little bit weird, you get more of that. We know that. So it's understanding what is it that I want to focus on, and what is it that I want to attract more into my life.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. Because, even if we have discussed this so many times with different thought leaders, I know that for some people, how you just said it will make an impact, and it might be the turning point for them to really understand what the law of attraction is. Especially recently, I talked about harvesting your full potential. And to me, whatever dreams that you're manifesting is just a manifestation of how you have been tending to your consciousness.
Yeah.
And Sam, can you please explain more about consciousness? Because I know, at least from my experience, that when you work from the inside out, you don't have to labor as hard as you would do on the physical plane if you just understood what you need to understand about the inner workings of your mind.
And I love it that we're in this intuitive, we're in the same split space. And I've been working on that exact subject, and doing more, deep dive, and research, and meditating and praying, because I'm getting ready for the show on Tuesday, thinking, okay, where do I want to take individuals for the next show. And that's part of it, is because it's easier said than done. It is easier to say, oh, just live in
Mhm.
that law of attraction space, and live from a place of what you want, not what you don't want. So what I was studying yesterday is just really remembering that you cannot you cannot think and believe in two different subjects at the same time. So we can either believe in, well, there is, I only believe in good. So let's just say that, good or evil, or fear or love or faith. Those two polar opposites. So living from a place of consciousness is knowing. So it's, you can start with thinking or believing in good. So God is good. So each time that you're having a thought that isn't good, So say you're believing in fear, say you're afraid of something, that your goal isn't happening, because this is what we do, is we think something, we want something to happen, we're thinking about it, it's not happening as fast as we want. And this might be something that I work with my clients on, is, either they're not losing weight as fast as they want, or they're not making as much money in their career, or their business isn't moving as fast as they want it to be. So then I bring it back to them and say, okay, so are you believing in fear, or are you believing in faith? Because you
Amazing.
cannot, you can't believe in both. So it's the consciousness of bringing it back to, I have faith in me and God, which I am God, but it's believing in the faith, and then consistently going around that. Because you and I both know that if you're believing in faith and you're believing in fear, that all you're doing is you're going this way, you're going that way, you're going this way,
Yes.
you're going that way. So it's really building on that faith, the pearls. I tell people, follow the next thought, the next pearl, the next pearl, and it takes practice. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, it takes
Yeah.
practice.
Amazing, Sam. And, I just want to applaud you for that because one of the things that metaphysical practitioners have to do constantly is how do I uplevel what I know, but at the same time be able to explain this as simple as possible and in a manner that's digestible for my viewers or my listeners or my students or my clients. And it's such practice that it will take from you a lot of energy to explain it as many times over.
Yeah, and
And
we have to remember that a lot of what we're doing is, these are, and I you can call them tracks. Like I have a background in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, so I'll often talk to people in those. It's whatever way I can hopefully explain it to my clients or anybody I work with, or in this arena speaking to, that you have built this road, you have built this track for your whole life, with this thought pattern and with this belief. So you have dug this big groove, and this is where your thought pattern and your belief is, and now you're expecting to carve out a new belief and a new way of creating your life and a new path. So you have to give yourself grace. You have to give you, like, this is a well-worn path. So if you're consciously saying, okay, I know I believe this, I know that I tend to do this, I know, like, this is why whenever I'm working with any individual, it is like, give yourself grace, be so kind to yourself. You are making a different choice, and each choice is thought by thought. It is not, people talk about quantum leaps, and people talk about, oh, I can help you, and we can make all these big changes in a short amount of time. It is possible. However, setting people up for that, because you do it to yourself too, then all of a sudden you put this pressure on yourself to make this big change, and when it's not happening, then what do? Then you start those self-defeating beliefs, you start that, beating up on yourself. So really recognizing that when you're trying to carve out a new path, that at the beginning, especially until you get more of a well worn track on the new path, like, just really be so kind to yourself, and each little step that you're making forward, like you're saying to me, I applaud you for that, thank you for saying that. You have to do that for yourself.
yes, thank you for sharing that, Sam, because one of the things that I learned over time as well, if you want something to be sustainable, you have to have the habit of really seeing. And because writing for me helps me just keep track of my improvement and progress. So one of the ways in which I check my thought pattern is there through writing, and at the same time, aside from writing, what I'm changing. Because during the day, as you keep meditating, you become more self aware of what's really running in your consciousness, the inner conversations, whether it's uplifting or self-defeating. And then we know that from that particular self-limiting belief or self-limiting conversations, you're now moving it into a belief that's the complete opposite. And just like what you said, it's not something that you can just shift immediately, especially if you have been so conditioned to believe otherwise. So now I want to move on, Sam, to the spirit aspect, which you do in your coaching, because you said you talk about body, mind, and then the spirit component. So I want to ask you now about the spirit component, because this is such a topic that sometimes, when you talk to the right people, they easily just relate with you because they believe in some higher power or spirit. But for some people, you also get a strong reaction that's the complete opposite, because for them there was no sense of higher power operating in their lives. So how do you go about explaining spirit or higher power to people, or the god of their understanding?
Well, you excuse me. You just said it, the God of their understanding. So typically first of all, typically I do tend to attract women, or like one of my longtime clients that was a male was extremely faith based. He was a faith based, or is a faith based speaker. So he knew of my way of coaching. So he emailed me one time and said, "Can I work with you? Do you work with men? Do you?" And I said, "Well, of course, of course." And because he was faith based, it was easy for us to do that work together. However, when it is, say, an individual that is not, as intuitively faith based, or they didn't grow up in a certain belief system or a certain religion, if they're attracted to actually check me out, let's just say, okay, I'm going to do a discovery session with you, I want to know how you work. When I do bring up the faith aspect, because I'm very clear about how I work in the body mind spirit uh, way, um, if they're open to it, then we talk about it more. If they're not, as because some of them will come right out and say, and it's not very many, but the odd one will say, well, that doesn't really fit with me. Then I say, well, can you think of it in terms of intuition? Or you can imagine, because this would typically be when I'm helping women with their business, because a lot of entrepreneurial women have heard, oh, go see Sam, she can help you with your business. And so they'll say, I want to make more money, or I want help with my social media, or something business related. And then when I talk to them about that, it's from the spiritual side. I'll say, well, in the past, what has your gut feeling told you, or what is your intuition? So then, they'll tell me, say, anecdote or a story where they knew their gut was right, that they made that decision. So then that's how I bring it back and say, you could equate that gut feeling to that spiritual side of you. That's how the two of those parallel. And that's how we start it.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam, because here in the Philippines, it's such a big topic for us to talk about God or higher power. And in fact, when you don't bring up the God topic or higher power, people think that you're not into a spiritual work.
Yeah.
And some people can be sarcastic and even go as far as saying, even the evil spirits are a spirit. So what kind of spiritual healer are you? So,
Yeah.
that particular comment really made me think, but at the same time, it also for me is a challenge as to how well I will articulate my understanding of the God within and how it actually works in my own life. And it's just up to them how they're going to process it for themselves.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Sam, I know that we've talked so much about your coaching system, but if you want to like just give people an invitation to it and simplify it so that they can work with you through a discovery call, please
Sure.
go ahead and just give us a brief understanding of your coaching system and the kind of work that you do?
Well, mostly what I've realized over the years is I I work best once I have a conversation with someone. That's why I say, you know what, every discovery call that I do is not necessarily, we're taught. Let's just I'm always good. I always like to bring out that elephant in the room. We're always taught as entrepreneurs and business owners, take somebody through a free call and lead them to your system and lead them into working with you and lead them into a package or how they can best work with you to lead them through that sales process. So what I say to people right off the get-go is I like to talk to people regardless, because I don't want people to think that that discovery session is, oh, it's just her lead in to bring somebody into trying to sell me on working with her. I work with, like, I truly do. I work with a limited number of people, and I know we say that too, but I know I know that I am only effective in working with those that where we are in true alignment, and we can only get true alignment through that discussion. So the discovery session really is your way of checking me out and my way of saying, what is it that you're looking, what are you looking for? I primarily, I work with women with their business. I do help women a lot to increase their business, or I help women with their self confidence and with their spirituality. It's really figuring out that what's my purpose, and that is where I would say my sweet spot is, or nutrition. So it's nutrition, business, and self confidence. However, that whole discovery session is really, if I can help you through that, and there isn't a place right now to move further as far as working together, that's okay too. Because what I have really known is when the time is right, like we talked about at the beginning, we thought we were going to have the podcast in June, and here we are in October doing the podcast. That is the same way with me working with people. When the time is right, I work with people, but I do love doing discovery sessions. I I do it, and all it is you go to Love Brand You and hit that discovery session link, and it's a usually an hour conversation, sometimes a little bit more, a little bit less. But once you answer the few questions, and when I say apply, the application process is really just to answer the questions that I need to prepare in order to talk with you, to give you the best that I can give within that hour. So that's really how I work with people.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And what's the one perspective that you want to leave with me and the rest of the viewers that we can immediately execute so that we can turn our dreams into a tangible experience?
Um, I think be be certain be certain about one goal. We tend to think of all these things we want in our lives, and I work with people. If you look at my logo and it's the mandala, so you see the six petal mandala, and those are the six areas of life that I work with people on. So I always say to people, okay, we'll take a look at these six areas. However, what is the one area? And sometimes it could be the one that's causing them the most problem, which is actually harder to work on at the beginning. You and I know that the harder you are away there, the more away from your goal you are, sometimes it's the harder one to start with. However, we focus on one goal at a time, and that's because you can work with spirit on that. You can say to spirit, okay, I'm working on my nutrition, or I'm working on my business, and focus on that, knowing the good. So if that's what you're working on, be really, really focused on the good and the progress versus the fear.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sam. And that's my takeaway from you. Focus on the good and the progress because it's the thing that will keep me away from my fears. And
Yeah.
it just reminds me of the trees and how they operate. So, one of the things that I learned is that the reason why trees live longer than human beings is because they focus on the sun. The moment they're not able to see the light, they're gonna find a way to see the light. So they're not like us where we're constantly second guessing ourselves where am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? To them it's not a problem. They're just focused on looking for the light.
I I learned something. Oh, that's
Amazing.
beautiful, Reg. Oh my God. Like I literally just got angel bumps. Like,
Amazing.
wow. Like, but that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like focus on the sun, focus on the light, focus on the good. And
yeah.
good is God. Good
Amazing.
is spirit. Good is source. Good is whatever you want to, and I always point to within because it's your heart center.
Amazing.
It's your heart center.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Sam.
thank
I
you,
learned
Reg.
so much, and I trust that a lot of people will get in touch with you through that discovery call. And I encourage all my viewers to make an appointment with Sam because, ideally people pay for these services, but,
Yeah.
she's just so generous to
And
welcome
that's what I
people
say
with
to
that.
people, Reg, through that discovery call. And I again, I've been doing this for so long that I put it out there, and it says right there, are you here for the free tips? Are you here for moving your business or life for like everything is just it's just straight up. And the other thing that I want to tell your viewers, Reg, because I am on the other side of the world, so my whole calendar is set up for my life. If it
Mhm.
doesn't work with any, if somebody looks at it and goes, hey, wait a second, I'm on the other side of the world and this is 2 o'clock in the morning that you want me to make an appointment with you, like people, please just send a message, like go to the contact form then, or fill out the time if you want to, and just say, you know what, we need a different time. Like I'm on the other side of the world and I don't want to meet with you at 2 o'clock in the morning. Can we figure out another time? And then we'll do it. Well, there's always a way to figure out a different time.
Amazing, Sam. And honestly, for my viewers, the reason why I was able to grow the perspective channel, although it's not a lot yet. We're only about 500 plus. But
That's
one of the things
great.
that I want to share to my clients or the viewers, I never make excuses for the time issue. Because honestly, for me, if there was no lockdown or pandemic and then you had to travel,
Yes.
you will also
Yeah.
be changing your
Yeah.
sleep pattern. So why are we making such a big deal out of the time
Yeah.
issue?
Yeah. Well, you and
And
I figured it out. You and I just went, okay, we'll do it at this time, and it worked. It worked great.
yeah. And just for me, Sam, it's just my personal opinion. It was crazy when I was organizing the convention. I never make excuses for time because for me, I'm still very young and there's so much to discover and enjoy and learn. And that's the reason why, if there's an opportunity, I don't want the time to be the issue why I'm not getting the opportunity that I want for myself. So, regardless, I trust that they book a session with you and to do it immediately because today is November 2021 in the Philippines and we have barely 8 weeks to go and you want to have a strong finish for 2021.
And
So,
it's
thank you.
exciting to think of a new year. It's
Yeah,
exciting to work on what you're finishing now, but also I always get excited at this time. I'm always excited about my work and life and all of that, but I always get excited thinking, "Ooh, what am I going to plan for?" Because it's about this time that I start planning for the next year, what I want that year to look like.
amazing. Thank you so much. And I
Thank
trust
you.
to have you again.
Oh,
And
thanks for having me.
yeah, of course, you're welcome. And blessings on your TV show.
Thank you, Reg.
You're welcome. So, mabuhay, everyone. I trust you were able to pick up some valuable insights from Sam. I personally love her simple suggestion about the food packaging. You know, sometimes we overthink what kind of decision we have to make about food, but I think that's very helpful. And another thing that I want to highlight on what she said is to always check within your heart space so that you can make the best decision for yourself and book a session with her. It's lovebrandyou.com for you to check out. And if you have some messages or questions for her, she just said that you can just send her a message. So remember, put things in perspective because your perspective shapes your reality. Mabuhay, everyone, and have fun.